Alright guys, so in today's video we're going to be talking about some interesting news and information regarding PlayStation as well as Xbox. The first thing we're going to be talking about has to do with how apparently there is a rumor going around that at one point Microsoft considered releasing Halo the Master Chief Collection for PS4, which is absolutely insane to think about. So we're going to go over that for a little bit, but we're also going to be talking about how Sony is seemingly gearing up and getting ready to acquire a new studio or potentially multiple studios, or maybe they've already acquired these studios and we will be learning about them in the coming months. And this is actually not a rumor or a leak. There is actually tangible evidence pointing to this being the reality and something that is actually going to happen. So I think you guys will find that interesting. But let's start here with this insane Halo rumor. It says, former IGN journalist Colin Moriarty had us all raising eyebrows when he claimed in his recent Sacred Symbols podcast that Microsoft once considered releasing Halo the Master Chief Collection on the PlayStation 4. I have it on good authority that Master Chief Collection was being talked about on PS4 years ago, he said, like I have that on great authority. A comic book article covering this rumor was immediately picked up by Twitter users and caught the attention of Halo franchise director Frank O'Connor. While he isn't in a position to confirm or deny Moriarty's claim, O'Connor hinted that it's something Microsoft might have considered but didn't actually make plans for. I'm not aware of the details of conversations between the platforms at a corporate level, but the distance between plans and some what-if, for instance, conversations is a meaningful gulf, he tweeted. We've had plenty of those over the years, but not one line of code was even glanced at. This doesn't address or dismiss the veracity of the article, by the way. I'm just pointing out the semantics as it relates to plan, O'Connor added in a subsequent tweet. The idea of Microsoft releasing its tentpole franchise on a rival's platform is certainly interesting. The critically acclaimed series has inspired books, comics, live-action adaptations, toys, and much more. We will update our readers if we learn if there's any more to this rumor. So certainly a very, very interesting rumor that, if I'm being honest, I actually do believe. At least I believe what Colin Moriarty's saying, where this could have been something that maybe was talked about on the upper level, something that maybe Microsoft was actually considering. The only thing that really doesn't add up or line up with me is the timing of it. Because if we look at the way Microsoft is right now in terms of how they view Xbox and their overall plans for Xbox, it makes a lot of sense. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Microsoft just flat out came out here. Phil Spencer said, oh, if we could put our entire Xbox Microsoft Studios catalog, including Halo, Gears, and Forza on the PlayStation, we would love to do that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that's something that Microsoft ended up saying, because we know that the way they are now, they do not care about console exclusivity. They only care about getting their games on every device, everywhere they possibly can. So it does seem to me that if there were to be a roadblock here, it would actually be Sony, for whatever reason, not wanting them to do this. But again, it's the timing of it. The Master Chief Collection is kind of, it's older. It's an older game. It came out towards the beginning of this generation, and it just doesn't seem to line up with what Microsoft's plans were at that time. I believe the Master Chief Collection, what did it come out in 2014, I believe? I'm pretty sure it was 2014. So at that time, I don't recall Microsoft being nearly as outward-facing as they are now with their plans of wanting to put their games on every device. And to think that they may have been even considering putting their, like it says here, their tentpole franchise on the competing platform is kind of crazy. It is crazy. Now, obviously, the one thing we can gather from this is not much came of this. Regardless of whether or not Colin Moriarty's claims here are true, I believe them to be true, but it seems like it really was just maybe a short consideration between the executives, at Microsoft, just kind of going over the idea or the possibility of bringing this to PlayStation 4. But at the same time, again, considering the direction that Microsoft is going in, seeing the newly formed partnership between Sony and Microsoft as companies, not necessarily PlayStation and Xbox, but still, it's above PlayStation and Xbox, where we have these two mega companies, Microsoft and Sony, shaking hands and pretty much saying that we're going to help each other out in in different areas and different ways. I don't know. Anything is possible at this point. Things are taking different directions than any of us could have ever expected them to take. So, yeah, I guess at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think that this is real and this could have been a possibility? And do you think we could one day actually see Halo make its way to the PlayStation systems or consoles? I will be interested to see what you guys have to say. So moving on from that, we are going to be talking about the new job listing that certainly hints at Sony gearing up, getting ready to acquire new studios. Now, I guess if we want to be technical here, we should file this under rumor because there is no actual confirmation, but this is pretty much the closest thing I think we're going to get, even though Jim Ryan, it was either Jim Ryan or Sean Layden, one of them did come out here not that long ago saying that they are open to acquiring new studios. And I think both of them actually talked about it. And I believe it was when Sony was talking to their investors in their most recent investors meeting. They said that they have plans to bring on more studios, acquire them, or even build them from the ground up. We did talk about this. But it says, as Microsoft has spent the last 12 months adding 8 new studios to their first-party lineup, Sony has been sitting on the sidelines watching. Well, it looks like Sony will be following in Microsoft's footsteps and acquiring more studios in the coming months if a new job listing is to be believed. The job listing states the following. Sony PlayStation is looking for an M&A program manager with 2 to 3 years of relevant corporate experience for a 6 to 9 month contract position. The M&A program manager will support the company in the due diligence process and put together project timelines to ensure that all acquisition integration activities are on track. The phrase acquisition integration activities makes it sound like Sony is looking to buy some new studios in the coming months and they need someone to help with integrating them into PlayStation's worldwide studios ecosystems. But who will it be? People have long thought Sony should acquire House Marquee. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Apparently I always pronounce that wrong, so apologies. The developer of the fantastic Resogun and the upcoming Storm Divers. It is hard to think of anyone else that Sony has had a long-standing relationship with. Who do you think will be acquired? So with that question being asked by the individual who wrote the article, I actually decided to post on my YouTube channel that same question. I wanted to ask you guys, who you think realistically Sony could actually be gearing up and getting ready to acquire. I said Sony is about to acquire 1 or more studios, and they will announce the acquisitions before the end of the year. Obviously, this was a hypothetical. What studios do they acquire? And I asked you guys to try to keep it realistic and within the realm of possibility. Of course, not all of you did that, which is totally fine. But I figured we could go over some of the most upvoted studios here and kind of just talk about whether or not this could be a possibility. Now, we do have to understand that maybe we're misinterpreting this job listing. Maybe this isn't what we think it is, but if you read it, if you read that description, it really does make it seem like, yeah, Sony's in the current process of looking to acquire studios, and they need somebody in a position that's going to be able to smoothly integrate them into, Sony's lineup and just have it be a smooth transition, make it as smooth as possible. We could be wrong here, but this is where we're going to kind of delve into the area of speculation. It's always fun. The top comment here, the top response says Insomniac and Kojima Productions. Now, it's interesting because scrolling through most of these comments, a lot of you said the same thing. A lot of you pointed at Insomniac and Kojima Productions. And, somebody else had mentioned Insomniac, and they said, I don't think Insomniac will get acquired. They've said it themselves that they wouldn't like to be controlled by publishers so that they can have creative freedom, but who knows, maybe Spider-Man's success changed their mind. Sony also has a pretty good record for letting developers tell the story that they want to tell. That's how games like God of War and Death Stranding were/are being made. So this is a really good point. I was actually thinking of Insomniac, and while Insomniac has went on record expressing that they really like being independent and it's just something that's important to them, we do have to understand that things do change. If Sony were to approach them and say, look, like, we have a great relationship and we would like you to be part of Sony's worldwide studios, especially after seeing, what you guys are capable of doing with not only past games like Ratchet and Clank, but especially with Spider-Man, and we know that Spider-Man's huge to both Insomniac and Sony now. In my opinion, it really would make a lot of sense, and there are a lot of benefits to be gained for Insomniac to be housed underneath, Sony's worldwide studios. So it's not like it's just negatives, right? And especially, Sony being able to show them, look, this is what we allow our other studios to do. It could definitely, basically what I'm trying to say is Sony could have definitely convinced Insomniac to maybe get on board with being acquired by them, because I'll tell you, it would be a huge get for Sony. It not only does it make a lot of sense, and it just seems like they already are pretty much a first-party studio, but again, there are a lot of benefits to be gained, and going forward, it would be a studio that's fully owned by Sony, and it would ensure that they could essentially have more of a safety net for future projects, even though seeing what they did with Spider-Man, that may not even be necessary, right? But the other one here is Kojima Productions. I think Kojima Productions is highly likely as well. We know that Kojima, certainly out of anybody that we can think of, probably more than anybody, appreciates this newfound freedom he has. But make no mistake about it, this partnership between Sony and Kojima Productions, it's something that I think was mutual. You know what I mean? I don't think Sony had to do much convincing to have Kojima partner with them. I'm sure Sony offered him funding. I think it's kind of obvious that Sony offered him funding, because when you look at how quickly Kojima was able to get his studio up and running, how quickly and efficiently they're getting Death Stranding out, it's absolutely insane. And there's no doubt about it that there was a lot of money that needed to be invested here, one way or another. So even though Kojima is one of these people that at this point certainly appreciates being away from the corporate entity of Konami and their grasp and how terrible things went with them, regardless of how long their relationship was, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it is a perfect match, and I think Kojima himself probably sees that, but it's one of these situations where it would really be up to him. It would be up to him, not Sony. Sony could offer him a lot, obviously. They already are offering him a lot with this partnership, but it would really have to be a mutual thing where Kojima would have to really be okay with the idea of once again being part of a bigger company. But let's, get established one thing here. Sony and Konami are they're night and day, okay? And I think that Kojima can see that. And so we're going to have to see. Maybe it's a situation where Kojima's feeling really confident in Death Stranding, and he's feeling confident in his studio, and he feels like there's no need for him to be acquired. Or maybe it's the other way around, where he sees the culture within Sony Studios, how different it is from Konami, and how it's just really about the art form and the games, and really expressing that and giving the creators freedom as well as a bigger budget. You heard what Sean Layden had to say about their stance on game creation going into next generation. So maybe Kojima Productions is another one. Now, I think Sony put here is, I'm assuming it's a joke, Microsoft Studios. I mean, obviously I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that could even be possible. Some other ones here, From Software. From Software, I will say, I think is highly unlikely, but man, that would be a get. That really would be a get for Sony, but I just don't see that happening. Another one is Remedy. Now, Remedy's interesting because they are still independent, and they've actually partnered with PlayStation with their new game Control, at least with marketing rights, so maybe that kind of shows that they're getting a little bit closer here. We see the type of games that Remedy likes to make. Sony could certainly be interested in that, so who knows? Maybe Remedy Games is another one that Sony could be acquiring. I think that would certainly be a good get as well, considering their track history. Another person said here that I think Bluepoint Games is the most likely. They are a studio that specializes with remakes, a good fit since Sony has a lot of classic games. It is rumored that Bluepoint is working on a remake of Demon's Souls. And yeah, we've been talking about that as well. Sony and Bluepoint Games clearly have a very, very close relationship there, and that Demon's Souls rumor continues to persist. So who knows? Maybe that is a studio they are acquiring. I do agree. I think that's one of the most likely studios, one of the most realistic. Maybe they're going to announce not only a Demon's Souls remake, but that, hey, Bluepoint Games is now a Sony first-party studio. I see more people saying From Software, a lot of people saying From Software. There's some people saying Rockstar Games, and, listen, I don't think that that's realistic. CD Projekt Red, also not realistic. I mean, these are, Rockstar's already owned, I believe, by Take-Two Interactive, so that certainly wouldn't happen. CD Projekt Red, they are independent, but I do not think that they need to be owned, or they have any desire whatsoever, or would even ever consider it. But yeah, I mean, there are seemingly a lot of different independent studios that Sony could go after if they're interested, and we have others like Ready at Dawn, let's see, Platinum Games. I don't know. I mean, at this point, it's anybody's guess. Again, I don't know what else to make of this job listing other than the fact that Sony is out there currently looking to acquire new studios. I want to end this video by saying another reason I think that this is certainly going to happen is there is no way that Sony is just going to sit back while Microsoft continues to gobble up studios and bring on studios left and right. Regardless of your opinion on those studios, that's not the point. The point is that Microsoft is out here really building up their first-party presence. And while Sony does already have an absolutely massive first-party presence, we know how Sony is. They are extremely competitive. They are not going to sit idly by and wait for the day to come, even if it is 10 years from now, for Microsoft to somehow overtake them. They're not going to do that. They are going to always try to stay 2, 3, 4, even 5 steps ahead. So that's why I think we should be paying attention to this, and I think it's very interesting to speculate what studios is Microsoft, or not Microsoft, is Sony interested in possibly acquiring, which ones make the most sense. So yeah, if I had to say a studio that I think truly will eventually become a Sony-owned studio, it is 100% Bluepoint Games. I just don't see it going any other way, and I think next in line is Insomniac Games tied with Kojima Productions. I think those three make the absolute most sense, and it really does seem like in some cases with some of them, it is just a matter of time. So I apologize for making the video so long, but I just really wanted to have this conversation, so I'm going to end it here. I'm going to ask you guys to let me know your thoughts about these topics down below. What do you think about Halo? Maybe one day making its way to PlayStation, and how the Master Chief Collection, apparently, according to Colin Moriarty, was actually being considered for PlayStation. Do you believe it? Do you not? Let me know why or why not. And do you think that Sony is actually going to be acquiring new studios? And if so, let me know which studios you would like to see them acquire, or that you think they are most likely to acquire. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Really helps me out. You guys have been showing a lot of support. I really appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.